Hello everyone, welcome back to today's episode. Today we're going to talk about strength training for the older generation. What I mean older, you may not like it, but I will say for people who are 50 and over, or even 60 and over, even 40 and over, if you think that you belong to that group. So what should we do? Should we lift weight when we grow senior, or should we just do regular walking? Okay, so today we are really lucky to have an physiotherapist. His name is Tiley. He's from UK, so he is actually very experienced. He has worked in the private sector, and he's still working in the private sector, private clinic, including hospitals, rehabilitation units, sports team. So it's actually related to my field, or taekwondo is a kind of sports. And he also worked at the British Para Snow Sports. So let's invite him. Let's invite Chris. And before I do that, remember to check the description below for our information, for my website, for his website, and for our mentor's website, Mr. Pat Flynn's Smart Passive Income. Therefore, make sure you check. And I would like to make an announcement. I am launching my beta program, which is called the Holistic Taekwondo, where you're going to learn about taekwondo, kicking and punching, the physical part, the technical part. You're going to learn about the psychology, mental toughness training, what kind of mental mindset you should have in taekwondo, but also in your life. We're going to talk about weight training, right? Weight training, stretching. We're going to talk about how to eat well. This program is only for people who are 50 and over. So I focus on that because I belong to that group. So I'm 53. I'm really happy to say my age because I think this is part of our mindset. We have to accept who we are. The more we reject how old we are, the more it will come back to us, So think positive, happy about our age. Without further ado, let's invite Chris. Hello, Chris. Thank you so much for attending this interview, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and experience.
Sarah, no, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much. I read about your biography. It's really amazing, and I think you can help a lot of people, especially your program that gearing towards population that are older. I mean senior. So you have a program called "It's Never Too Old to Lead."
Yep.
So yeah, I would like to hear more about you. And would you mind to tell us more about your background and what do you mean by too old to live? I know many people may not like the word old, so hope to hear from you.
Yeah, of course. So yes, as you said, so I'm a physiotherapist, or some, I think a lot of people in North America refer to a physical therapist, so same thing. In the UK. I've been qualified for about 13 years now. So started off in hospitals, like you said, and then worked with sports teams for a while, and that included the British Para Snow Sports. So that's our disabled ski and snowboard team. So I think there it kind of took my interest with the strength training specifically to start with, because I was working with people who might have been missing a leg, or who've got spinal cord injuries, some that are visually impaired, and they're able to work around their limitations and still get themselves as strong as possible and make themselves kind of robust and resilient to try and prevent injuries. And so that kind of sparked my interest in strength training initially. And then I started to work within private clinics. So your classic physiotherapy department. So someone might come in with back pain or knee pain. And through that, I would implement some of the strength training into that. And then they're my current people I tend to see in the area I live and work tend to be of the older generation. And so I've really enjoyed taking people who never thought it was possible to build strength again and do the things that they've been scared of, and then see how that benefits them in both their health but also their lifestyle as well. And then, like you say, I've managed to be interested in trying to share that with more people. So I've started the blog Never Too Old to Lift, and yeah, I suppose we'll talk through more about different aspects of that in a second.
Well, wonderful. Wonderful. It's never too old to live. It's actually resonate with my message. As you know, I have just mentioned that I am launching my Taekwondo program. It's a certification program for those who had missed a chance to learn Taekwondo when they were a child, when they were younger, when they were a kid. So it's now this is time to join my program. It's a holistic Taekwondo program. Why I say holistic is you learn about many things. You learn about mental skill, not only Taekwondo part of it. I know when people talk about Taekwondo, they think of kicking and punching, but Taekwondo is more than kicking and punching. It's a do. Taekwondo is a do that makes a difference. So, my program, we also talk about strength training, stretching, because you need strength training to be able to punch hard and kick hard, but also you need stretching to be able to kick higher because that makes you more flexible. So we'd like to hear from you. What do you mean by never too old to live? Like, what is the age range for people who would like to learn weight training?
I mean, it's a bit of a span, but basically from the age of 30, but it accelerates from the age of 50, is we lose muscle mass and muscle strength. A process that's called sarcopenia. But like I say, it's a loss of muscle strength and mass as we get older. So it's really anyone who started to notice as they got older, they've started to lose strength. But most people tend to notice a bit more beyond the age of 50 and 60. And you start to find some things feel a bit more difficult. And at that point, people may stay relatively active, but if they start to develop sort of slight niggles and injuries, or they just start to feel more fatigued with those activities, some people get scared to do them in case they cause an injury and they start to stop. And once you stop your more active activities, that's when the strength really starts to decline. And a lot of people think it's just a normal part of getting older, but actually you can turn it around at any point. You can not only can you slow the loss down, is you can actually reverse and gain strength that you've already lost. It's going to be a little bit harder and a little bit slower process, but it is possible. So yeah, Never Too Old to Lift is aimed at trying to take people who have noticed they're not as strong as they used to be when they're younger, and they want to make a positive change, and they want to enjoy all aspects of getting older and moving into retirement and having grandchildren and spending more time in the garden and all the things they've always imagined they'll be able to do when they get older, but starting to think and doubt themselves because they've started to feel a little bit weaker.
Yeah, it is true. When I was a child, I was told that don't lift too heavy, or don't do any weight training or strength training, because it will make you it will not make you grow taller, because the myth is that when you carry weight, it will push you down, right? The weight is heavy because of the center of because of the gravity, it will push you down. So when you are younger, you're not supposed to carry weight because it will make you it will not make you grow. It will just make you look short because the weight will push you down. So that is a myth, right? So what is what is the earlier age people can carry weight?
It's getting younger and younger, and obviously I work more with the adult population and especially the older adults. But yeah, the myth that if you started weight training as a child, it would stunt your growth is been sort of disproved, and it's not a thing anymore. So you see a lot of people from a lot younger ages, and I don't think you necessarily need to push before people are adolescents, but definitely in their teenage years, it's absolutely fine to lift weights. And like always, it's something you want to do ideally under supervision and or with a bit of a plan and a program in mind, rather than just kind of aimlessly going into the gym and just picking up weights. And that's the approach I talk about for older adults as well, which we'll come on to. But yeah, for younger age, it's you can start earlier. Than you don't have to wait till you're 18. And then, like I say, as you get older, it's not something like you just said. People used to think that if you lifted a heavy weight and loaded your joints, that it would damage your joints.
Yeah.
But actually, we found that the stronger your muscles are, the more efficient they are absorbing force. So they act like the best way of describing it is like a good suspension system. Is if you can smoothly absorb force, then you protect your joints. Whereas if your muscles are weak and they fatigue quickly, you tend to stiffen up. And if that force still enters your body when you walk and you do things, your muscles can't shield your joints, and your joints start to take more of that force. And that's where actually being weaker is worse for your joints than them lifting weights. So yeah, with in terms of the research and our mindset around lifting weights is we know now that it's protective of joints rather than damaging to joints. And it's just trying to get that message out to people, because there's a lot of, like say, instilled beliefs in people that it's a bad thing that's gonna cause injuries. And don't get me wrong there, if you approach it the wrong way and you go too much too soon and you don't follow a plan, and
I agree.
you don't kind of respect your current ability levels, then it can cause some form of injury. But if you start off slow and let your body adapt to the weight and then gradually build it and gradually build, then it's fantastic. And it's like I say, I've got written a blog about it because I'm such a fan of it, and I see the results in people that I work with.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm not sure where did that people get that misconception. Where did that get from? Like, I wonder why we were told that when you are a child you should not carry heavy weight or weight because that will stunt your growth. But when you grow older, and they will we were informed that it will maybe break your bone if you carry weight. So I wonder, where did that get from? Where did they get that kind of a misconception information?
Difficult to know. I think it's probably just because we didn't have the research at that point, and it sounds logical that if you lift heavy weights and you put weight through the joints, then it sounds like a logical thing that you might damage them. It's the same as running. There's some more recent studies showing that if you are a regular runner and you've gradually built up your mileage, then actually people who run have a thicker cartilage around their knee than people who don't run. Whereas we've always been told that running is bad for your knees and you shouldn't do running. Actually, like I say, we're finding research that is starting to show the opposite of that. So I think it's probably just the lack of research that people had, and it just sounded like a logical thing. And now that we've got the research to start disproving some of the old myths, we can start moving forwards and really promoting them as things you can carry on doing.
It is true. So what are the other misconceptions about weight training for people in your niche or niches? Do you think that it's never too old to carry weight or to lift?
I think a lot of people think if they've never done it in the past that it's too late to start, and you can't. People think you have to have done it all your life to carry it on. You can always start at any point, and I suppose one of the other myths is that people think it has to look like someone with a barbell, so the bar with the weights on the end on their back, or weight training or strength training. I use the terms interchangeably. So there's weight training, resistance training, and strength training. But if we look at the strength element, which is what I tend to focus on as a physiotherapist, is it's taking the muscles to the point of fatigue. So if I say, for example, ask you to squat 10 times. So a squat is a movement like you get up and down from a chair, for anyone who's listening who's not too sure. So it's that action of sitting down and back up again. Yeah, exactly that. If I asked you to do that 10 times, and on the 9th one you began to struggle, and the 10th one you found it challenging, if I asked you to do an 11th, ideally you should find that actually you've got nothing left in the muscles. You can't do an 11th one. So that means you'll have taken your muscles to fatigue by that 10 repetitions. That's where the strength gains come. If you finish a 10 and actually you could have done another 10 straight away, then you weren't lifting quite heavy enough. So for some people who've never trained before, their body weight might be enough to hit that fatigue point. So you might not actually need any weight or resistance at all. For other people, they might need 20 kilos, 40 kilos, 60 kilos, or I use kilograms. I'm not sure if it's pounds. I think pounds is roughly double kilograms, but you get the point. And it doesn't have to be weights either. It could be a resistance band. I know you've got one of the little loop bands there. Yeah, you can also get the bigger bands with handles at the end, or there's ones that are big continuous loops. Anything that applies additional resistance to make it easy or allow you to get to the point where you're going to hit fatigue is fine. Equally, a weight doesn't have to look like a weight in a gym. I know someone who has found different rocks in their garden, or when they went down to the beach, they've got some that are this small that are kind of a couple of kilograms. They've got some bigger ones that are 10 kilos, and they put those in backpacks. Some people use sand. They buy a big bag of builder sand from a department store, and then they will bag it up so they can have 1 kilogram bags or 5 kilogram bags, and then you can put those in again in a rucksack. And so it doesn't have to look scary. Like, so a lot of people are intimidated by the gym or the weight section of a gym, and you don't have to go to a gym. You can do it all from home. Like I said, it doesn't have to be expensive weights, because I know the pandemics, the home gyms have been more desirable. So the weights, so the price of the weights has gone right up. I think it's starting to come back down again now, because a lot more gyms are open in different areas of the countries. But yeah, it doesn't have to be a scary, intimidating process. It can be something that's quite achievable and familiar to begin with, and then you can build the weight. And as you get better and better at it, you want to get better equipment, and you kind of feel like you feel more confident to step into weight sections of a gym. But yeah, I think they're probably the main ones: is the fear of causing injury, the thoughts that you're too old to start if you've never done it before, and the thought that you have to go to a gym. You can do this all from home or in a garage or somewhere where you feel safe and less intimidated.
Yeah, that's good point. That's good point. I know many people think that they need to go to the gym because of all these fancy equipments. Actually, they can actually do at home. Of course, maybe going to gym, you get more motivation, because when you see other people doing the gym and you will like psychologically were pushed to do because of peer pressure, maybe. So how to overcome that? I know that people going to gym sometimes feel more motivated when they people, and they feel motivated because they see people doing this, so they do it together. It's more like a group environment. But if they're at home, how to get motivated to do that when they're at home?
So I think the best place to start with that question is to, before you even think about going to the gym or picking up a weight, is thinking about why you want to do it, especially if you've never done it before. Because if you haven't done it before, it's probably because it's something that's never appealed to you, or you feel it's just not particularly interested in it. And obviously there's a lot of things like the health benefits of it. So we've talked about sarcopenia, which is the loss of muscle strength. We've talked about joints and how it protects against osteoarthritis, which is the kind of degeneration of the cartilage. There's also osteopenia, which you've kind of alluded to before. So it's where the muscle density reduces as we get older, and if eventually that could cause some fractures. Whereas actually, if you put weight through the bones, that encourages the bones to become more dense, and then it'll become stronger as a result. So there's obviously the health benefits, but sometimes because you can't see it, or that's not necessarily motivating on its own. The other things you could think about are how it might affect your lifestyle and your relationships with people. So, for example, I always use the example of grandchildren, and I've got a 17-month-old son who he's somewhere between 12 and 13 kilograms. Which if I show people a 12 kilogram dumbbell for the first time, they're often quite scared of it. But if they've got grandchildren around that age, they've been lifting them already, so they know they can lift the weight. They've just never kind of they've never realised they've been lifting that weight before. and their grandchild's only going to get heavier. So we need to prepare them for that. So if you then start to think about the fact that as you get older, you want to be able to do all the things with your grandchildren, you can use that as a motivation to push yourself in the gym. So every time you lift a weight, you can almost imagine you're lifting your grandchild. The other thing, a lot of the people I work with in the clinic that I work at is they love their gardening. So when they're in the gardening, that involves some heavy digging. It might involve lifting a wheelbarrow and moving it from one side of the garden to the other. It might involve carrying a full watering can. And all of those are quite heavy and demanding tasks. And exactly. You need strength to be able to do that. So you can imagine if you held a kettlebell and walked across a room for like a single arm farmer's carry, that's called, or a suitcase carry. You can imagine that's benefiting you in the garden. So the more you can kind of visualize that how strength training will affect your lifestyle, that can help. And then I mentioned relationships. Is a lot of people use sport as their social environment. Mm-hmm. So whether that might be golf or tennis or running or anything along those lines, it's interlinked with meeting up with friends and meeting them afterwards. And if you don't have the strength to play golf, or you pick up an injury and you now can't play golf, mm-hmm. you then lose all the connections with the people that you play with regularly. So it's doing the strength training the motivation of being able to still be able to do the things with your friends will help, or still spend time with the family. Or for example, my mum comes up to look after she lives about 2 hours from me. So she comes up to look after my grandson, my son, so her grandson, every couple of weeks, so that I can work a bit later in an evening that day. And if she didn't feel like she had the strength to do that, she would not only feel like she's missing out on time with him, but she'll feel like she's letting me down. And obviously I'm very grateful for her coming up. And it's just lots of different parts. So if you can really work out what your motivation and your goal is, mm-hmm. that will help you in the gym. So you don't necessarily need other people around you. I think that helps, and accountability to someone else is fantastic. So whether it's just checking in with someone, whether it's on a video call, or whether it's a message and saying, yep, I went to the gym when I said I was going to go, and they said, yep, me too. You can keep each other motivated. It might be you go to the gym together, and if you're feeling on a day that you don't want to go, you make yourself go because you don't want to let the other person down.
Right. So
that's another great way. And the last one is having a plan. Is most people don't, and I've been guilty of it in the past. I think, right, I'm going to do a workout today. I'll go to the gym, and then I step in and I think, right, that bit of equipment's free. I'll go and do a little bit on that, and I'll see what happens. And then, okay, now I'll go and do this. And I didn't really have a plan when I walked in. And without the plan, not only for the session, but for the next few months or the progressions you're going to work on, it's quite easy to kind of feel, what's the point, or what am I actually working towards here? And so creating a bit of a plan before you've even started is fantastic. And you can adapt the plan, and people will work at different rates if you've only just got started now. It all depends on what your baseline level of strength is. But yeah, for me, that's it. Is what motivates, what are your big motivations, and how can you create some goals from that? Create some accountability with someone to help with that. And then with all that, you can create a plan. And then when you get started, you can work through that plan. And that then could be in a gym. And if you thrive off the environment of other people working around you, great. If you feel like the gym is actually, you don't like the thought of people watching and you feel intimidated by that, don't force yourself to go, because you're just gonna.
Good point too. Yeah,
you can do that at home, and then, like I say, you can use your accountability partner to get that kind of that feeling of motivation.
Wow, great points. So we always have two ways of looking at it, right? People like to go to the gym because they have that environment, right, to push them go further. But on the other hand, people do not like to go to the gym because they do not want to be watched, like for certain movement, it looks awkward for some people and say, I don't want you to watch me doing this. And especially if you don't carry a good amount of weight, and you may feel that, I'm not good, and I look weak. So that's the other reason why people do not want to go to the gym, because they want to have the privacy. So yeah, it's a good point to think about it. I think so. During this pandemic reason, people tend to do it at home. It's just that maybe not everyone has a space to put all this kind of weight. Or I would like to know more about the home environment. I'm not sure how many people have the room, like space, to do weight training or to do any lift. They may think that they need a big space or a special room, like in a gym, to do to carry weight or to lift weight. What is your suggestions for that?
No, like you say, you don't necessarily need much space at all. The type of movements that you do, and I'll kind of briefly talk. There's 7 main movements within strength training that we tend to work on. So one is the squat, which we've already mentioned, which is that the active kind of sitting down and standing up again. And then there's one called the hip hinge, which is kind of the deadlift. So it's where you kind of more bend at the waist and then come back up again. But again, you're just standing in one spot. Then there's a kind of lunge-based action, which is where you kind of take one step forwards and then you kind of lunge down towards the floor and back up. Then you've got push, where you might push something away from you, or you might push a weight up over your head, or that could be a resistance band that you push up over your head. And then you've got pull, where you pull something towards you. So you might anchor the band to, you can normally get, with the resistance bands, you can get something that loops over the door, and then you shut the door, and it's kind of got a stopper at the other side. So as you pull it, it stays secure. Then you can pull the band towards you. You've got rotation of the body, so you can rotate the body. So again, you could use that same band that anchored to the door. And then you've got walking, or gait. I talked about the single arm farmer's carry, where you might carry a weight and just walk to one side of the room and back. So most of them, you can just be in one spot, or you might just want a kind of yoga mat or exercise mat on the floor. But yeah, you don't need a huge amount of space, and especially if the weight that you use is more like dumbbells or a kettlebell, then you can just stand with a kettlebell here, rather than having a bar some of the bars are 7 foot, which a lot of people aren't going to have the space for at home. So you don't need the big bars. The thing I tend to suggest is the adjustable dumbbells, if you can, because you might have just a small bar that you slide on some weight plates, and then you can put a stopper at the end. So some of them are kind of like springs, some of them are something that you screw on, and it stops them from falling off. And then if you want a bit more weight, you just take those off, put a couple more plates on, and you don't need multiple, because if you had a kettlebell, you might need multiple kettlebells, or if you had what we call molded dumbbells that are just come in one size, you might need a few of those. Whereas just a few weight plates and a dumbbell bar, or a couple of dumbbell bars, they can store quite easily somewhere. Equally, resistance band will provide you adequate resistance, and they can just be folded up and put in a bag. So storage-wise, you don't need a huge amount of space. And then once you start the exercise, you just need a little bit of space around you so that you're not going to clatter into things, but it doesn't need to be a huge room, and you don't need a huge kind of length to walk through. If you're doing the walking exercises, you just do back and forth multiple times if you need to make up those steps.
That's fantastic points. So if you're listening out there, make sure you share with your friends. I think this is a very good content you can share with your friends. Let them know that it's never too old to lift weight. If you are watching this or listening to this, make sure you leave a positive comment, or let me know what is your number one takeaway. So let's move on with the next questions. So Chris already mentioned there are so many benefits of doing weight training. We talk about strength, we talk about flexibility. We talk about even mental skill, mental ability to be able to carry weight. You need that positive mindset, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are the consequences of not carry or lift weight or not doing any strength training? What are the consequences for that?
Yeah, so we kind of briefly covered it already in terms of the loss of muscle strength as we get older. And whilst we've still got quite a lot of muscle strength from when we were younger, it doesn't affect things straight away. And then eventually we'll start to, if you've got, say, this much muscle strength and say you play tennis and it starts to reduce, at some point it'll get to the point where you'll start lacking the strength to play tennis at the level that you want to. So you might then have to find you pick up slight injuries or you just fatigue too quickly, and then you might think, all right, I'll drop that back slightly, and then you lose more strength and you think, right, I'll stop the tennis. And then things like the gardening might be affected. Then getting up and down the stairs becomes affected, and then getting out of a chair gets affected. And I'm talking, this is a lot later on down the line, but the longer that we leave it and ignore the fact that we're losing strength and more things are becoming difficult, the harder it is to start again. But also the more that we have increased risks of falls. And if we fall and you've already started to develop osteoporosis, then you're at a higher chance of causing a fracture. And then once you go to hospital, you might then need a period of time where you're not able to get on your feet to allow that to recover, which allows even more strength to decline. And then, I mean, this is worst case scenarios, but it's something I see all the time is people just think it's completely normal to feel weak as you get older and to stop doing the active things that you love. And I think, yeah, it's the lack of health. It's the loss of your hobbies that you love. And then it's the loss of opportunity for social interactions as a result. Because even if you just go out for a walk with family, if you feel like you're always the one lagging behind and slowing them down, then you're less likely to want to go. So then you'll lose out on the walking then. And it's a whole host of things. And you talked about mental health as well, and mind, and how you're going to feel in those situations. And so a lot of people get great self-esteem and self-confidence from lifting things they never thought they'd be able to lift, and building that back up again and creating a more positive future, rather than always thinking that it's always going to just get slightly worse and that's normal and I'll just live with it and I'll see what happens.
Well, there's so many benefits of doing weight training or strength training. So you make sure those who are listening, make sure you actually share with your friends and maybe start doing something for yourself. So what are the what do you call it, modification or adaptation for people who have injury from sports or from work, injury from accidents? So what is your advice for them?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the different, whether it's a shoulder problem or whether it's a knee problem, but generally every exercise can be. Most people know that we can start off with an exercise and we can progress it, so we can add more weight or we can make it quicker. But often people don't realise there's levels below it, so there's ways of regressing in exercise. So, for example, for the squat, so if most people who say have knee pain when they squat tend to find the knee pain happens at the lower part of the squat. So actually, if they just work on, rather than squatting down to a normal height or to a normal, say, chair, they might go to a stool. So they just work on a more shallow range of movement. But as long as that's then pain-free, then what you can do is you can start to add weight to that. So you can then make it really challenging for the shallow part, but just avoid the deep part completely to start with. And that will still strengthen your muscles. And then eventually, once the muscles are strong enough, you'll be able to start working into deeper and deeper movement. The other thing you can do is you can offload the weight of the body a little bit. So you might use, for example, the TRX, they're kind of a suspension trainer, so that they're often attached somewhere up high, and you hold these handles and you can pull. They're kind of fabric straps that you can pull tight, so you can take some of your weight through the straps and squat down, and that way you're not having your entire body weight go through into the squat. You're just offloading some of your body weight. So again, it's another way to just, if you can't even manage a body weight squat, that's fine. It doesn't mean squats you put aside and you just work on the other ones. That's actually the one you're going to need to work on most. For some people in the gym, there's a leg press. So you can, rather than squatting, you sit in the leg press machine with your feet on a plate and you push the plate away from you. And that way you can just put a little bit of weight on the plate and just work on getting used to the small amount of weight before you then load it up heavier. And then when you can lift, you can start to push closer to your body weight, you can do a squat then. With the shoulder, some people find they can't hold the bar back here because they haven't got that feeling of ability in the shoulder.
Maybe, yeah.
So equipment-wise, there's bars that come across called safety bars that you can use in the gym. You might hold a kettlebell here, so your shoulders are down by your side. You might use a resistance band. So again, there's lots of different ways to adapt it. And it's the same, you might not have the ability to lift a weight above your head. So in that case, you might lay on your back and just push forwards. It's still a push motion, and it'll work slightly different muscles. But yeah, there's ways you can incorporate all the different exercises. But sometimes, and if people struggle to find a way, that's when it's worth seeking out the help of a physiotherapist or personal trainer in the gym. And there's other people that see this all the time. We know how to find different ways of doing it, and sometimes it's a bit trial and error. It's not the same for everyone, and but there's ways to be creative to find a starting point. And once you find a starting point, that's when it becomes easier, because then you can progress from there. Sometimes it is a bit more challenging, and if you're struggling on your own, find someone to help you find that starting point. You don't necessarily need to keep seeing someone forever, and if you're worried about it can be expensive to see personal trainers one-to-one all the time, but sometimes if it just helps you find that start point, you can then progress it on your own and then check in with someone every few months.
Wow, that's fantastic information, and I really appreciate you share your expertise with us today. And if people would like to contact you, how can they reach you?
So best way is either on nevertoalterlift.com on the website, and then I'm on all the main social medias as Never Too Old to Lift. But the big one I tend to use is Facebook. I've got a YouTube channel as well, which is again Never Too Old to Lift. So either message me on Facebook, or there's a contact page on the website. You can get hold of me there. If anyone's interested in, I've got a free goal planner and workout template that people can go on and download, and it just gets you to start to go through some of the questions you might want to ask yourself to help create the goals. And the other thing we didn't talk about is what barriers might you face. So for example, if you're at home and you have to store the equipment, where are you going to store it? Because if it's a real effort to get the equipment out every time, you're probably going to start talking yourself out of doing it. Whereas if it's somewhere easily accessible, so if you thought about that in advance and you started to make a plan ahead of time, when that challenge actually becomes a reality, you're going to be able to challenge it, and you're going to be able to work around it so that it's not a problem. So yeah, there's a resource on there that people can do, and then it comes up with a bit of a template that you can start to put some of your exercises into, and it talks you how to regress some of the exercises and adapt them. And then any questions from that and you struggle to find the start point, I'm more than happy for people to reach out to me. And it might take me a few days to a week or so to get back to you, but I will get back to you at some point.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, it's good to know the barrier, and I, for myself, I don't like to keep moving my equipments, or even they are very small. But it's a good advice. So yeah, thank you so much, and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, because both of us have YouTube channel, and you want more information, make sure you check the description below. Last but not least, and make sure you stay well and stay healthy and always have confidence within you. Take care. Bye.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.